she's funny, she's smart, she craves chocolate every day, and she is the Greek goddess of comedy. Here is your host, Ellen Karis.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Karis' Comedy Corner. My name is Ellen Karis, and this is the guest edition of Karis' Comedy Corner. I am very excited about our guest. I love the way we met, which we will talk about, and all of the great projects that he is doing. But first, of course, as you know, we have to thank our sponsors. Our first sponsor is Baywalk Marketing. Go to their website, baywalk.net, for all of your advertising and marketing needs. They can help you with any kind of a flyer. They can help you analyze the demographics of your business. They're also experts in the Greek community. Go to their website, hollywoodgreeks.com, to find out where all the Greek entertainment is, and hellenicfestivals.org to find out where there is a Greek festival near you. And looks like things are looking up and they're sunny. So the church is going to be opened up. The souvlaki is going to be flying. The gyros, the tzatziki, whatever you want, go to Baywalk Marketing, go to their website, and check out all of the also other different websites that they have, that they connect, that they help businesses with. Baywalk Marketing is the company. Baywalk.net is the website. Our other sponsor is SelectFlex. It is an orthotic. What's an orthotic? It's also called an insert, and you put it in your shoe. Why do you need this? Because your entire body needs it. Your alignment, your knees, your back, your hips, everything starts from the feet and works its way up. You need good support no matter what shoes or sneakers or work boots that you are using. I do not work out with these unless I do not work out unless I have these inserts in my sneakers. I do not walk around New York City without them. They are fantastic. And what's interesting about these that makes them different from any of the other over-the-counter orthotics is there's an adjustability in the arch. You can adjust the arch firm, extra firm, or extra firm, depending on what your needs are. Go to their website, selectflex.com, selectflex.com. They have a 30-second video that shows you how it works. And for Karis Comedy Corner listeners, there is a 25% discount if you type in the code FAMILY25, FAMILY 25. You get a 25% discount because I think of you as my family, except you guys and I get along a lot better than some of the people that I'm related to. So go to their website, selectflex.com. And I say this on every show, it is the best inventions in suitcase on wheels. All right. So I love interviewing people. I love to find out what people's stories are. And I love finding guests that I don't know, because I don't know what they're going to say at all, because I don't know that much about them, other than when I met them, they had a very interesting story. And I'm like, I got to get you on my podcast. So I love the arts. I love creative people, although we've had all kinds of people on this show. So I went to a party a couple of weeks ago. And actually I went with my sister. It was my sister's guest. My sister knew the guest of honor. And I met this gentleman and we started chatting. And he is a writer, a director, a producer. He is involved in a movie now called Can't Let It Go, about how people are, and he's going to explain it a lot better than I'm going to, but how people reacted after the 2016 election. Hot topic, no matter where you live, but certainly in this city. He's got a great body of work here. I'm going to put on my glasses for a second. I'm sorry. Concert Joe, a New York story. I want to find out about that. Charcoal, which were about events that happened to his family the days after 9/11. Gonzo Music Diaries, Edge Codes. And what I find interesting is that I love people like this because they're always writing, they're always creating, they're always wanting to tell stories. And I want to hear how all of this came about. And to top it all off, one of the stars of Can't Let It Go is one of my favorites, Mario Cantone, who is uber talented. So without further ado, please give it up for my friend Roy Szuper, Szuper. How are you?
Good. Thank you, Ellen. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for doing this.
And I know this is going to maybe not be clear to your fellow viewers, but maybe we should start with the elf story.
The elf, yes. Yes. I wish I thought of that. So we were at this party. Okay, so for all the COVID people or whatever, it was in a restaurant. It was in the back of the room. It was fine. Everybody piped down before because they hear party. We did not go to a place where we wanted to spread COVID. So it wasn't. It's not. You know, we weren't in Miami. We were on the Upper East Side, and we were both wearing red shirts. And I had my red turtleneck on because I was cold. And you were wearing also like a red cotton, almost like a mock turtle kind of thing.
Yeah, I was wearing a red sweater, but they were the exact same color. And then my brother came over and said, "Hey, are you guys you look like two elves in Santa's workshop."
And then I piped in and said, I was an elf. I mean, I was an elf. I was a Macy's elf. Yes. My elf name is Short Stack. And I elfed it up for 2 seasons. And last, well, as you know, no Santa last season or last, when I don't even know what year we're in anymore, but you know, the COVID, post-COVID.
That's really
yes,
funny.
yeah.
I immediately thought of David Sedaris, and then I think we started talking from there.
Right. So David Sedaris, if you don't know, wrote the Santa Diaries, which is a takeoff on his personal experience on Santa, working at Santaland, and he worked there in like the early 90s. And it is funny, although I guess I can say this now, but you're not supposed to talk about that at Santaland. Santa has given us specific instructions not to discuss, because there might be people, you know, guests that come and they'll say something about it. And we are, as elves, supposed to just not address it.
Yeah.
So
did you have to sign a non-disclosure agreement before you left, or what?
no, I mean, I didn't sign anything. I shouldn't say that. You do sort of have to sign about like using the likeness and Macy's and all that, because they own that whole franchise of Santaland. But they when they found out that I was a comic, they did say, and they were very nice. The managers, they were very nice, you know, because they didn't know. And they were like, the monologue. And I said, yes. And they're like, you're not going to do anything like that, are you? And I'm like, no. I mean, that definitely wasn't my intention. I'm not going to say that in stand up, I didn't use a couple of jokes, but David's was a little, biting, let's say. He said he did a lot of things. He sort of almost named names. So, but anyway, yes, that's how we started talking. And then the next thing you know, I'm a comic, you're a writer, director. You were there with your lovely wife and your baby. How old is your baby?
I have a 10-month-old baby and I have a 20-year-old son.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's quite the span.
Yeah.
All right.
Starting all over.
Yeah, really. Well, I didn't meet your son, but your baby was adorable. And you are a friend of the guest of honor, and you had grown up. So very impressive. You are a native New Yorker. You've grown up here and lived here pretty much your entire life. You went to high school here, all of that. So you're the real deal on the Upper East Side for the most part, right?
Yes, and I was actually born in Astoria, which is why I know the whole Greek Orthodox thing. Because my father actually goes to a Greek Orthodox church because he's Ukrainian.
Oh, that's so funny. I just did my other solo podcast, and I started with Christos Anesti, which is what we say is Christ is written. But it's like, we always say Greek Easter, like us Greeks go Greek Easter. And honestly, I say it because that's what people know. If I say Eastern Orthodox Easter, they don't understand it for the most part, for the most part. So we say Greek Easter, but technically it is Eastern Orthodox. So Ukrainian, I said it today. I said, I don't know how to say Christ is risen in all those languages, but Russian and Romanian and Georgian.
Yeah.
So
it's
that's
confusing, right? Because when you hear Greek Orthodox, it's like, okay, how did the Ukrainians and everyone else wind up there? But I don't know.
Right, but we won't get into a religious lesson, but you know, if you want to hear, want to know about it, Wikipedia, just Christianity, and it'll show you, we were all one, and then people went their separate ways, which is really a metaphor for life. So, like Bill and Melinda Gates. I mean, if they can break up, then, you know, certainly religious organizations can break up. So, so I want to first talk about how you got into writing and directing, and like since you grew up in New York City, were you did you go to like performing arts, or
You know, it's funny. I didn't. I sort of, when I was younger, I was more of a jock. You know,
I
went to, I went to like an all boys school. I went to Xavier High School, which is downtown on 16th Street. And I commuted from uptown. So I was born in Astoria, and then my parents split. We moved to the Upper East Side, or as I like to say, Yorkville, because Upper East Side to me is a little too fancy for the way I kind of grew up. You know, I grew up in a sort of a middle class way. And back then, Yorkville was pretty much middle class, you know, like now Upper East Side is a lot fancier than it was when I grew up. Anyway, I was kind of a jock. And then I just sort of got into the arts when I got older, and I had the opportunity to travel a little bit. My uncle was living in Europe, and he was a musician, so he was kind of like my creative role model. He was like the only creative guy in the family, and he introduced me to a bunch of stuff that just kind of got me interested in writing. Like he introduced me to Hunter S. Thompson, Hemingway, Graham Greene, and I just started reading more, and with that, I guess I just got into writing, and then I also just found that I was like living kind of a crazy life, and I was like, okay, I got to start writing down these stories. So a lot of my stories are just really based on like adventures that I had.
So when you went to college, did you major in theater or writing or something?
Not at all. I majored in political science. I was still am sort of a political junkie, and even my films are tinged with, you know, politics or political related humor or social justice issues. So it wasn't until my last year of college that I took a film class, and I was like, bingo, that's what I want to do. But so then I went to SVA for a couple of years in the city. And then I just started working on, you know, smaller productions. I started in live music production. That was my first gig. And was working on a few documentaries. And then like around 25, I was just like, you know what? I'm going to start doing my own stuff. I can do this, or at least I want to give it a try. So that's kind of how it all developed.
So what was like the first piece of work that you did that you got to really see on film? I mean, how was that? And I mean, you're not old by any stretch of the imagination, but I just want to highlight that now things are so easy. You can film on your phone. Back in as I like to say, back in the day, and again, it's not that as long, you know, it's not like we're talking 50 years. You needed a lot of equipment, you needed a crew. It was a lot harder to do that. So, I mean, you know, how did you feel about all that? Like when you were going through that, or you just sort of like forged ahead and did what you needed to do?
Well, yeah, it was totally different. I mean, you know, the cameras weighed probably a good 25, 30 pounds, you know, and I remember living on 14th Street in a 6th floor walk up and lugging all this gear up, lights, camera, you know, everything. And luckily I was in my 20s. I had a lot more energy back then, but I initially started doing a bunch of stuff for, I did a sketch comedy show at this public access place on 23rd. And it was just like a good place to get free equipment, really. And they had a green screen studio, and we were working with a bunch of pretty good writers. So I actually just produced and directed, and that was just a good way to practice. And then about a year or two after that, I started doing my first documentary, which was Concert Joe, a New York story.
Now, interesting because, you know, documentaries now are hot. I mean, I just find that there's so much, first of all, there's so many out there. There's so many really good ones as well. And I don't know if it's because of the age now of Netflix and Amazon Prime. Obviously, they're more easy accessible, but you know, HBO, because HBO's been doing documentaries for a while, but it's almost like they've upped the ante. They used to do, I felt like they used to do things that were like very obscure, but now they also do a lot of human interest, like Tina Turner and Tiger Woods. So you were like, to me, like ahead of the curve in doing this, you know. Now like watching like everybody watches documentary. Back then it was just almost like intellects, special intellects watched documentaries.
Yeah, you're right. It wasn't as hip as it is now. Like you said, there's a lot of great documentaries now, not only on HBO, but yeah, just all kinds of stuff. Whereas, yeah, when I was started around 20 years ago, there weren't as many. And for me, it was just it was actually the first time I was unemployed, and I took that time to do this documentary. I met this guy while I was out, and he was a big self promoter, and he was like smoking all kinds of crazy weed at the show I was at this club called the Wetlands. And he was like, "Hey, I'm trying to get into the Guinness book for seeing the most concerts." And I was like, okay. I had just kind of started shooting some bands for music videos. So we just got to talking, and this kind of became one long extended music video in a way. It was like my total immersion into the New York music scene, following this guy around. I mean, he knew like everyone. So some of the bands that were in this film are kind of still around. Murphy's Law was kind of one of the bigger bands we had, and God Street Wine, Zen Tricksters, Richie Havens I got to interview for the film, Milo Z, all these like, New York bands that only like real New Yorkers know, who were like going out every night around that time. But it was great. I learned so much, and I met so many great people. And it was it was shown on MTV and VH1, and it was just a good learning experience.
That's fascinating. Did that make it into the Guinness Book of World Records, or?
Well, it's funny. He tried so hard, and there was this unofficial record that he broke, which we, memorialized in the film. But it turns out there was no category, and no matter how hard he tried, they wouldn't open a category, an official category.
Interesting.
And they have categories for like longest nose hair and everything, like
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
so then that was it. You were hooked into filmmaking. Yeah,
it's true. I was hooked. It was like the adrenaline, not only of and we were doing, like, in addition to the doc part of that documentary, we were also doing some reenactments of stories he told me. So at one point, there was this fictional band that we created called the Pigs from Hell. And they were like dressed as cops with pig noses. So I know this is like, we can go into some woke stuff later, but this was like total guerrilla stuff on the subway. We had 6 people dressed as cops. We had a guy in a wheelchair that was getting beat up, and we basically cleared out the whole subway car. So and we were doing it at like 4 a.m. on the subways. So that was another kind of crazy part of it all, was like the guerrilla aspect of it. With we were doing with no permits, not a lot of money.
Wow, that's a big thing. That's a huge thing. You also had done a documentary about you. Is this your family's experience about 9/11, or?
Yeah, so Charcoal was actually, it was a narrative film that I wrote. It wasn't a documentary, but it was based on an event that happened to my family 2 days after 9/11. It was so ridiculous that I had to kind of reenact it because no one would believe it. My family in Queens was having a barbecue, and my grandmother kind of looked a little ethnic, and my uncle, who I mentioned, who was the artist, had a tendency to kind of walk around in his underwear in the But so the neighbors were a little skeptical of us, but it went to a whole nother level when they had the barbecue, because everybody was so paranoid after 9/11 that the little smoke that was coming out of the barbecue was interpreted as some sort of terrorist act, you know? So the cops came, the firemen came. There was like almost a lynching that took place. And my cousin and I were in the front of the house and missed the whole thing because we were practicing guitar. And we went to the backyard and we were like, "Hey, where's our food? We're starving." And they were like, "What? You missed the whole thing?" So I honestly didn't believe it when they told me, and they insisted that this like event happened. And I was like, "This is crazy. I have to make a film about it." So the next summer, my grandmother was away. I redid the whole house with a production designer, and we kind of recreated the whole thing.
Oh my God, that is very funny. Yeah, I mean, there was certainly a heightened sense, and especially Queens was like a hotbed for finding terrorists, or feeling at least that most terrorists lived in Queens. So that's funny, and then that's very funny.
And then, of course, on the day of the
obviously it's the origins are tragic, but you know what? We gotta also find something to.
Well, that's my whole thing. I mean, it's like I try to look at the ridiculous things that happen either in my life or in the world, and just try to make sense of it through humor, you know?
Well, as a comic, I appreciate that. That's basically my life. That's my childhood. You know what I'm saying? Just trying to find tragedy in the sadness.
I hear you.
And you also wrote you've written you wrote a Madhouse, a play, and you also wrote a novel. I mean, I have to tell you, I admire people that have the discipline to sit and write big bodies of work. So I, as a stand-up, my stuff is bits that I put together, but it's very different writing than writing a novel or writing a play, and so just to be able to concentrate, to find all those words. I mean, and they're words that people are reading, so they have to be grammatically correct. I mean, if I have a run-on sentence in stand-up comedy, which I do most of the time because it's very ranty, no one's going to stop and say your punctuation sucks, but the joke wasn't bad, so it's a whole nother level. So again, this is all pretty much self-taught, but tell us about that. Tell us about those Madhouse and Love Letters from the Abyss, which sounds like my dating life before I got married.
Well, I don't. It's not about your dating life. It's it's really about my dating life as a single father, more or less. So I'll start with that. Love Letters from the Abyss is a book that I wrote, which I'm hoping will be published this year. And it's basically the story of my life as a single dad in New York. I was very close with my son, and I had my son when I was pretty young. So it was almost like an older brother, younger brother vibe in a way. We did a lot of traveling. We had a lot of adventures. But then the story also centers on a woman and her daughter that we meet, that we kind of become a family for a bit. But then me being sort of too young and reckless screws it up. And then the last third of the film is me writing a book about it. Very, very kind of meta, I guess, right? And then sort of reuniting with her 15 years later. So that's the gist of the book. And then I also adapted a screenplay from it. And the book also has almost 50 illustrations. So it's not quite a graphic novel, but being a filmmaker, when I show it to people, I want them to think of it as potentially a movie, down the road. So I have this great Colombian artist. Her name is Natalia Medellin, and she did 50 drawings, and you can see some of them on my website. So.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. We have to check that out.
Yeah.
And then what about Madhouse?
So Madhouse is, I've worked at the Metropolitan Opera House on and off for close to 15 years. And
excuse me, you mentioned that when we met. You're a stagehand, are you?
No, I actually work in the ticket office.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, we sort of are like the front lines, and talk about getting good material. I mean, every day, I'd just be jotting down notes with all the wackos that I meet, because the classical music person is a very specific person in New York. They're completely neurotic, overeducated. Uh, it's
Okay.
like, and this is like their cathedral, so you're like, it's difficult to deal with some of these people. But like I said, I got great material over the years. And
Give us an example of something outrageous that you've encountered.
oh man, well, uh, let's see. Well, there's this one lady who was named Harriet Bitten, right? Now I could say whatever I want on here, right?
Yes, absolutely.
This one lady used to come up who was practically toothless. And we knew that she looked like a bag lady, but when we looked her up in our system, we saw that she was a pretty big donor. And the two things just didn't make sense, right? So one of the security guards came up to me and he said, "Listen, there's a lot you don't know about Harriet." And I was like, "Yeah, like what?" He says she comes out of a certain conductor's dressing room every night, 10 minutes before the show. And I was like, "No, not Harriet." Like, I wish I had a visual right now for you. Like, we're someone who you would think would be a bag lady. And I don't want to name this conductor's name because he's very famous. But yeah, just like crazy stuff like that you would never expect.
Oh my God. So this was a play that you wrote?
It's funny. It started as a play because it was so talky and it was just so much dialogue. And it kind of revolves around my character, more or less, in the ticket office, sort of exploring the opera house and meeting all different kinds of creatives. So, I would meet like actors in the cafeteria and dancers and stagehands and, midgets who are in the production. And, now we're in David Sedaris territory. But it was a little bit like that. It was just like me kind of wide-eyed and meeting all these like amazing characters, including like I kind of became friendly with the makeup guy, and he had been there for 45 years and was a real historian of the place. So I got a lot of good stories from him. But basically it's a farce. It's kind of like a Christopher Guest vibe, Best in Show, that Spinal Tap. It's sort of making fun of a very specific type of person, at the opera. So
I love it.
yeah.
I love where does that stand? That work?
So after the staged reading, I realized that it was really more of a film, because I could never have part of the story revolves around the staging of an opera, right? So I could never really do that in a play. It just couldn't happen. So we want to shoot it in Argentina, actually, because I have some connections at the Cologne Theater in Argentina. So we've been sort of doing some scouts there, and we're hoping it'll be about a third of the price to shoot it there versus any opera house here. And it'll be pretty self-contained. We could pretty much just shoot in the opera house. Most of it takes place there. So yeah, we're hoping after Can't Let It Go that will be the next one.
Oh my gosh, I want to see that for sure.
Yeah, I think it'll be fun.
That's great. I would say, well, I have big teeth, so I can't play Harriet, but maybe I could play another snooty character. So let's talk about your current work. It's in pre-production. It's a feature film. It's called Can't Let It Go. And I'm just reading this because I want to make sure I get the description right. It's about 5 interconnected relationships and how they were affected during the 2016 election. And it is being executive produced by Academy Award winner James Ivory, who is also a friend of yours. And I have to say, so that was the 2016 election. Of course, we've now, the person that got elected is no longer in office, and we had another dramatic election, obviously, in 2020. So how are you? Are you revising it, or so? Tell us about the film and like how are you dealing with this? Because the one thing with political comedy is it tends to be topical. So you have to sort of make it so that it's not that yours would be outdated, but I'm just saying you want to kind of keep it current. And with politics too, it's so fast and furious in terms of
I know.
the changes.
Well, totally, I agree. Well, let me just start by saying that if Trump was still president, this flag would be hanging upside down. So it's not quite all the way over yet, but it's almost there. But yeah, after the 2016 election, as you know, being a New Yorker, so many of us were in a month or 2 month or 6 month or 4 year hangover. And a couple of us decided to get together and just do a little short about our sort of post-election nightmare, and so that was a short film that we did called Can't Let It Go. And then when I screened it, Mario, who I'm friends with, came down, and a bunch of other people, and they were like, man, this is really good, you got to write the feature, write a part for me. And so it really inspired me. The reception at the screening really inspired me to write the feature. And I showed it to my friend James Ivory, who I met at the opera. That's how we know each other. And he's sort of been a mentor to me for over 10 years. I'm really lucky to have him. And I showed him the screenplay. He thought it was really good. And that inspired me to sort of just take it to the next level and try to cast it. And here we are. And in terms of it being political, I guess the best way to describe it is to say that it's more about sort of quirky New Yorkers, the way Seinfeld was, the way Larry David stuff is, it's within a political context. So whether it's 2016 or 2020, it can almost be the same because it's less about who's president and more about their own personal interactions,
I love it. I mean, Seinfeld's my favorite show, and I watch it every night at 11 because it relaxes me. It's about the 90s, which is pre-chaos. And I still love that format, that banter. So I certainly can't wait to see your film. If that's the template that you're using, I think it's a great one. It's interesting and it's fun and it's funny.
And obviously I'm a Democrat. I have a certain point of view. So it is, I guess, a film with a Democratic point of view. But, and this is a big but, we also kind of make fun of Democrats too, and sort of the extremism really on both sides, and so in a way, it's not exactly a politically correct film because we are making fun of both sides. And to be honest, they need to be made fun of.
No, but see, you're touching on a really, really great point. And hopefully when your film is done and whoever does the marketing will, that'll be highlighted because you never want to be pigeonholed in, as one or the other. Look, funny is funny. And, I always say this, I go, I don't care if you're making fun of, the person that I like. If it's funny, then it's funny. And that's all.
Agree.
And that's all I care. It's about the joke.
Yeah.
And so I want to kind of spark something. So, I'm a New Yorker. I'm also a lifelong New Yorker. I mean, I went to high school in the suburbs, but then kind of circled back, and then I've been here pretty much, ever after college and ever since. And I went to grammar school here and junior high. But so my politics are not, people just assume that I am on the left because I'm a New Yorker. And I first of all, I want to kind of form my own party because I don't check all the boxes in either. And then you go, well, independent, and that even when you say you're an independent, I feel like that's got its own connotation. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't know if it's not going to go away. But my personal opinion is I don't feel like these parties and the labels apply anymore, because I think unless I'm hallucinating, I think there's a lot of people like me. I believe in this, I don't believe in that, but I believe in that part. And and I really do. It's like a hodgepodge of stuff. Yeah. And but we're not getting rid of the two-party system. It's just not going away, and that's not how it works. But so it's interesting when people just kind of assume, because I live in New York, that I'm for, whatever is like. And again, when you say it, it's always like these extreme left situations. Mm-hmm. So I mean, I just had somebody I hadn't talked to in years, and she got on the phone, and I don't know why she just started talking about how she was talking to somebody, and they're a Trump supporter and she's not, and then she wound up her saying how she trashed all Republicans basically. And I'm like, well, first of all, when you trash an entire people from a party, like that is to me like a very old-fashioned, naive way of thinking. Like, how can you say all Republicans or all Democrats or all? That's why I can't stand it anymore. So I always say I want to make my own party. The this is what works for me party. So I could check all my boxes.
The church of what's happening now.
Right. So as far as Donald Trump goes, I mean, we could sit here and complain about some of the ways Donald Trump, obviously, some of the things that he said and the tweeting, and I wasn't signed up for that. But there were policies that I agreed with him on. But when you say that, like people's eyes, they want to pop out of their head. I didn't say I'm all for, I said, I like this, this is that. And then if I go to the other side, it's like, I like this, this, and that. So it's so polarizing. It's so like, it's become like grade school, like picking teams, picking your friends.
Well, part of what we'd like to do, or what we hope would happen with film, is that people could actually discuss politics again in a sort of sane way, because for example, like I told you, we had a crazy scene in Concert Joe where we had 6 guys dressed as cops, 3 of them with pig noses. And, when you're younger and you're like, you're like or more of a rebel or a guerrilla filmmaker or whatever, that's like, but at the same time, I have a cop friend, who I grew up with, who's one of my closest friends, who's a Republican. And he could look at that and laugh, and, he could, send me stuff every day from his cop Instagram sites. And I'm like, oh, okay, I see your point, and we can kind of actually, being friends, have a discussion. But not many people can do that. So I really hope with like making fun of both sides in this film, that people can be like, oh, well, that guy was like, okay, he was like a Trump supporter, but he was kind of funny. And I kind of saw that guy's point. You know what I mean? Like, I hope it'll spark some discussions.
Right. And I also think, and because we're just on the subject of Donald Trump for a second. And by the way, you and I being New Yorkers, Donald Trump is not a new phenomenon to us. He's been around, he's done things, and he's done some good things for this city. In the 80s, he was one of the builders that was kind of instrumental in kind of bringing this city back and stuff like that. He takes credit for everything that has nothing to do with him. I get that. His ego is massive. No question about that. But
well, I don't know if I'm going to agree with you on that, Ellen.
That's his head. Is that his head?
That's a little Trump head, yes, that we actually have in this short film. Can you see? Yeah, there we go. That's better. Yep. We'll put him right in front of the Stars and Stripes.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Anyway.
But
sorry, I'm digressing.
My point in saying that though is that I like what you just said about having a conversation. Friendships have been broken in the last 5, 10 years, certainly in the last 5.
Sure.
I've heard it a million times. Lifelong friendships, families have been destroyed. Just even an immediate family, siblings aren't talking to each other.
No, totally. In fact, one of the interactions that in the film, I didn't talk to my mom for a year. And almost all the dialogue that is in the interactions that, based on my character and hers, I stole all of it. I mean, it was just unbelievable what she was saying. Like she went down the rabbit hole of like far right craziness. And I couldn't talk to her for like a year, and now we're still like iffy, but you're right. I mean, like, it's just a lot of friendships and family relationships.
And that's not good. It's not good, number one. And number two, I'm going to say this, and this applies to all politicians across the board. We're fighting and they're laughing all the way to the bank. Okay. Nobody's losing. They're not losing sleep. We're destroying our families and our lifelong friendships, and they're having a grand old time. And let me tell you something else too. I think sometimes when the door closes, all those people that you think are enemies are all in cahoots. Everybody's going to the same party. They all have the same manager. Like, I am like convinced that sometimes it's almost like a scam. You know what I mean? Like, let's get everybody to fight this way. They'll all be hopped up, and that, that'll cause them to make decisions and money and spend money and this and that. And they're like at, some resort in Turks and Caicos, like at the real convention.
Yeah. I mean, I would agree with you if it would say 10 years ago, but now I feel like people are so entrenched and so polarized that I don't know. I think it's changed. I think, like, I don't know if these guys, like, I know in the Senate and the House, these guys used to go out to dinner together afterwards and be friends, but now it just seems like they really hate each other.
But okay, so now I'm going to rebut that for a second. So, opposed to 10 years ago, politicians are the new celebrities. Okay. They've pretty much pushed the celebrities out of the way. And some of the celebrities that are still remaining celebrities are because of their politics at this point.
Yeah.
More than it is about their work. And so I feel like I don't think that that's the case, because I feel like the politicians take up so much airtime now when you think about it, which is again, I mean, kudos for you, because your movie is very topical, when it comes to that, what happen. And if it ever changes, which I don't think it is, because we keep going in that same direction, then actually it will be a documentary, because it'll be about what that felt like in that point in time.
Yeah. Well, I did started writing the series because it's there's a lot of characters in the film. It's like an ensemble piece. There's 5 couples, so it kind of lends itself to like future stuff, future stories. But I mean, we obviously make fun of the right, and the character that's based on my mom, all the right-wing craziness and QAnon stuff. But then we also kind of make fun of, there's one scene where I go to a Democratic Socialist meeting, and I'm very confused. My character is very confused by the whole, gender politics thing, and he has a younger girlfriend who's trying to like explain it to him, but it's like confusing as hell, Right. Like that part of the left is, to me, ridiculous too. Like, who can remember all this, like, stuff? It's hard.
They,
how can you call someone they? Like this old school guy I know, this tennis coach that I know, somehow I ran into him the other day, we were talking about that. He says, yeah, one of the parents wanted me to call their daughter they, but he said, that's 2 people. She's only one person.
Right. I was going to say that's plural. Like, so we got to get the grammar correct if we're going to, do all that. Right. No, I mean, I agree with you, and it's not being disrespectful, and it's not taking away from how the person feels, but it's just like, first of all, we can only remember so much of this type of thing. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, if there was a fire in that tennis court, it'd be like, everybody get your ass out of here. Like no one's going to be like thinking about things like that. So I don't know. I don't know. Sometimes my head spins with all of this. And I think, and again, it's not to disparage somebody that's going through or going through that, you know, feels that they don't identify with anybody. I respect everybody's opinion, but we gotta get it to a point where it's like, okay, so now you're pissed at me because there's something that, you know, I can't relate to. I'm not disrespecting you. I'm just saying it's something I can't relate to. And I got to remember this. If I don't remember that, you're going to be pissed and you're going to complain. I'm going to get written up. It's like, really? I mean, we've lost, you know, put way too much time and importance on way too many little detail things. And we are going farther and farther from just basic human, just respect and kindness and, you know, working hard. And
it would almost be like asking that person to, you know, have them know everything about your Greek Orthodox traditions. You know, it's like, okay, I don't know all those, but if you tell me about them, I respect them and I'll try to learn them. But, you know, it's just, I don't know. There's so much information, new information that, like you said, it's not like people are, I think, like us who are maybe don't know it all, that are being disrespectful. It's just a lot to take in.
Right. I'm like, I'm going to slip up. I'm telling you right now. So there you go. So live with it. Okay. Like pick up your pants and live with it. I don't know what to tell you. What I was going to say, you said something about QAnon. So, you know, here's another example of where now when you say Republican, it goes to QAnon. It's like, how did that happen? Like, where is that linear line to that? And again, media loves it. You know, this excitement and all of this sells. So they want to put that out there. But you know what? They did a good job because lots of people on the other side, or, you know, if you're on the Democratic side or the left side, think that now. They just go right to that. It's like, whoa, wait a minute. So it's very exhausting to just, you know, pigeonhole everybody. But tell me about, as far as your film goes, I love that it's got, you know, really the relationships and then, you know, and then that comes into play, which is really going to be interesting. I love Mario Cantone. That guy, he is so talented. He can sing, he's funny, and he's very funny off the cuff. You know, if you've seen him on a talk show, he just rants. And so he just has, I love him. I'm a huge fan, obviously. Where does he fall into that? And so he's pretty involved as he's one of the characters, I assume.
He's one of the characters. So Mario Cantone, is part of a gay couple, interracial couple in the film. His husband actually works for the Trump campaign as a stand-in. He's African American, and they needed an African American to put behind Trump at the rallies because so they pay him a lot of money, and so in the film, it becomes obviously a conflict because Mario's character is a liberal, and even though his husband Clayton is working for the Trump campaign, he's sort of like middle of the road, you know. But they're both struggling actors in the movie, and he's kind of like, hey, I need this job. They're paying me a lot of money, you know. So they go. The big scene that they have is they go to Mario's parents' house in Brooklyn. And he's Jewish in the film, and his parents are the father's a very conservative Jew, and the mother is more like liberal. So this huge fight breaks out, you know, over politics and race and everything. So like that's like the big juicy scene that he's in.
Oh, I mean, that just sounds so great. That is right up my alley. So where are you in terms of the film? So you're in pre-production? Are you about to film?
Yeah,
Or, so
we're
where
in
are you?
pre-production. We're still waiting for a few pieces to fall into place. But it looks like we're going to be able to get going in August.
Okay,
So
great.
yeah, and my producer on this, his name is Andre Basso, and the company is called Ninth Street Films, and he does a lot of visual effects and post-production stuff for bigger films. So because we're such a low budget indie film, it's great to have his expertise because basically, we can't afford 500 extras for a political rally scene. So what we're going to be able to do with his talents is to be able to get 20, 30 people in a room and sort of shoot them at different angles. And then he composites those images to make it look like there's 400. So that's what Andre is going to bring to the table, and excited to be working with his company because he's worked on a lot of bigger budget films. So yeah,
And
so we're
then
just sort of, it takes a lot of work. Obviously, we've just been prepping for months, and yeah, so we're hoping to get going in August.
in August.
Yeah.
And then, are you GoFunding this at all, or?
We're hoping not to. That's sort of the 23rd hour scenario. I mean, we're right now we have a couple of investors, and we have a couple others we're waiting to hear from. And then really within the next few weeks, if we don't sort of get to where we need to, we might go to the crowdfunding as sort of a supplement, because I don't think it's going to bring in all that we need. But I know it's also actually a good way to build an audience. I did have done it in the past, so I think we probably will do it on some level. Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't have the stigma that it did. As a matter of fact, it's almost like with projects that are on the smaller side, it's almost the norm.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
and celebrities have done it as well for their projects. So
Right. I'm not, embarrassed to do it, or I'm not going to shy away from doing it. I have done it for another project, and it worked well. And it is a nice way to build an audience because you keep in touch with those people. You let them know the progress of the film, and it's nice. It's sort of it's a nice way to do it.
And in terms of distribution, I mean, do you have someplace specifically that you would, the ultimate goal of where you would like it to be shown?
Not really, not at this point. I know we have some connections with film festivals. I mean, that's sort of the first step, is to get it into sort of the more some of the bigger festivals, because that's where you're going to find distribution. Yeah, so that's sort of our first step, and that's a whole process, month-long process too. But yeah, I don't really have a specific answer for where yet. Yeah, I'll have to talk to the marketing people.
Yeah, well, that's very, very exciting. I'm really happy for you, and I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, we're excited to make it.
Yeah, well, you'll have to come back, and we'll talk. We'll have to talk about it. But I want to ask you on a personal level that, and again, I didn't realize that because I met your young baby. I didn't realize you had a 20-year-old. What do you what have you learned being a father from then till now?
Oh man,
With your second child.
Yeah, that's a whole nother episode right there.
And probably a film, knowing you.
Yeah. Well, definitely one, to try to stay married. That's like a key, because with two parents around, that's just a lot easier. That's really, a big part of it. Seriously, like I know when I got divorced, my son was 2 or 3, and it's, as it affects children, not having both parents around. Even though I was around a lot as a father, there's just something missing, I feel like, with that.
Oh yeah, no, not living together, of course.
Yeah. But then, the other thing is I'm older now. I'm a little more mature, slightly, I guess. And
Wait,
so,
let's get your two wives in on that.
right. Yeah, honestly, I've been home for almost a year now with my new son, Stefan, and he's really, really lucky to have both parents around for a year. I think a lot of these COVID babies that have had both parents around are really going to benefit because they've gotten all this love, all this attention, and it's going to be hard to sort of go back to the real world when we have to go back to our jobs, and then see your kids a couple hours a night, right? So yeah, I mean, I don't really have that much wisdom to impart other than I think if I had to do it all over again, like maybe I would try to minimize some of the strife that happened that was sort of very obvious during the divorce. Like
Mhm.
I know a friend of mine is going through a divorce now, and he's very good at sort of like not putting the kids in the middle.
Mhm.
I mean, you try your best, but I think I was a little bit more of a hothead years ago, and I think probably I let you know I sort of probably lost my temper more, or like allowed my son to be exposed to like the strife more than let's just say that happened now. I would be more cognizant of that.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And how is your older son with your young son?
He's very sweet. He actually stayed home the first semester so that he could last semester so that he could bond with Stefan, and they were very cute. I mean, it's such a big age difference, so it's almost like an uncle vibe at times.
Right, 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 right.
But he's very sweet with them. I was actually very surprised. It was nice. Yeah.
Good. That's really good. That's really great.
Yeah.
I talked to you for hours at the party. I could talk to you for hours on my podcast. I'm really glad you came on. You're
Yeah.
welcome anytime. Come back when you have the project finished or anything else.
Yeah.
I love it. I love people that can sit down and make art. I think, and especially now we're coming out of this thing. I think I'm looking positive. We're coming out of this thing. It's going to
Yeah.
be fine. It's going
I
to
think so. I mean, look, New York is already starting to feel different.
Yeah.
There's more people out. There's
Yeah.
They're opening up. I mean, a lot of people are vaccinated. I definitely feel that it's turning a corner.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, the governor and the mayor, who are two of my least favorite people. It was funny too because we kind of talked about that because we
Yeah.
have a mayoral race coming in
Mhm.
New York City, and
Yeah.
it's really, really super important that people go out to vote. I can't remember if I said this to you, but Bill de Blasio got only when he won for a second term. The voter turnout was 20% in all 5 boroughs. It was 20%, and he got 80% of that 20%. So it's very, very important that people go out. Our city, as much as yes, I'm glad that obviously the whole COVID thing is turning around. Our numbers are lower. The vaccinations, whatever the case may be, the virus maybe hopefully cycling out. I'm hoping for some natural good things that are happening. But we still have a lot of issues here. A lot of destruction has been done. A lot of financial destruction has been done. And we haven't had the leadership, and the crime rate is still, it is an issue, is a huge issue. And you and I grew up in a time when it was crime riddled, and that's what we're going back to.
Yeah,
So
it is starting to have that 90s feel again, a lot of
totally.
shootings, and yeah, it's
The,
definitely,
the numbers are up. I mean, the numbers
yeah.
don't lie. It's like 200%. It's crazy. So my point is that we started talking about this, but we have that, we have that coming up. And I just tell everybody, and you know what, it's good. It really ties into your film also. It's like, I just ask that everybody in New York, A, go to vote, and B, just look at all of the candidates. Don't look at the blue, and don't walk in and just go down the line. Look at everybody and see who you're comfortable with, and hopefully the person you're comfortable with is going to be tough on crime, because this can't go on. This is bad. This is, this whole, I was talking to somebody yesterday, I don't want to say who it was, and they're in law enforcement, and they said, and I think they put it the best way, and I'm sorry, I'm going off topic for a second, but they said, there was the no bail reform came about because there were things that were not right, and there were some injustices, but instead of sort of moving to the middle, it moved all the way over to the other extreme.
Yeah.
And now we're in this place where you can push somebody into subway, in front of a train, and then get off, and be roaming the streets. So
yeah, I know it's.
We need
I agree.
Right. We need that middle ground.
It's the same thing, again, I'm getting off topic now, but it's like, it's the same thing with the slogan of defund the police. Obviously we can't have no police. So yes, reform the police maybe, but that's makes sense, but you can't defund the police. I mean, the city would fall apart, obviously. So,
oh God.
Yeah, you're right. Moderation,
moderation, and laugh at the politics.
Yes.
And, I can't wait. Your film sounds fantastic. Give us also your social media so people can follow you.
Yes. So if you go to can'tletitgofilm.com, you'll see the cast, the crew, everything about the film. And then my own site is Szuper Films. That's spelled S like Sam, Z like zebra, UPER Films, plural.com. And 9th Street Films, also my co-producer, Andre Basso, and his website, which looks much better than mine. So special effects guy.
That's a whole nother thing.
Yeah. But Ellen, thank you so much.
Thank you. Hang on. We want to thank Roy. Check out his social media. Look out for the film. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I'm glad we went to the same party and we got to meet. My name is Ellen Karis. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Greek Chick Comic. Go to my Facebook page, Ellen Karis Greek Goddess Comedy. Go to my website, ellenkaris.com, ELLENKARIS.com. And this podcast will be on all the podcast platforms. If you go to my website, also, it's all the other podcasts that we have done for 6, yes, count them, 6 seasons. We have been doing a weekly podcast. So please check it out. I've had a lot of great guests on, and maybe at some point we can get Mr. Mario Cantone on. So
yeah. Maybe once the film is done, we'll bring him on.
We'll make that a goal. We'll put that out in the universe. All right.
We have to go see your stand-up too.
Yes. Oh, please. Yes. Well, actually, I'll tell you something about that in a second when we get off. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much. Until next time. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.